Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you're joining us from around the world. It's time for another set of six, and this one is a little bit exciting. In the lead up to the Euros, we've been talking to some of the nations and their representatives about how the competition was expected to go. But today we have somebody live that's participating in the event, and we're going to bring in Renee Watson. Renee, welcome aboard a set of six. Thanks for joining us. You're over there supporting one of the men's teams, but I want to learn a little bit more about you in the offset discussion we had just before we came online. I detect a bit of an accent, a bit of a combined accent. What's the Renee Watson story?
Yeah, I'm Australian, though I'm slightly odd because I didn't discover touch until I came to the UK, and actually my kids were doing rugby tots.
We just seem to have had a technical difficulty there. Renee's frozen on screen, but rugby tot's a good pathway for juniors to get involved. We've got Renee back now. Renee, we're just talking about the rugby tots.
Yes, I needed to get fit after having had my children. I thought I'd go and have a go at touch and immediately became pretty obsessed with it. So I was a kind of late starter, but absolutely loved it. And I would hope to have been participating in this Euros as a referee. I was picked to be able to do that, and I was sort of training for that. Unfortunately, I made the mistake of playing the game with the round ball, fractured my ankle, so that pulled me out of being able to sort of physically participate in this competition. So I'm here as a team manager.
There you go. So team managing, and who exactly are you managing over there?
I'm here with the Sweden men's 30s team. Great bunch of guys. Sweden has put a team in the European Championships once before, a mixed team, but this is the first time they're putting a men's team in.
Okay, and how's that going? How are the boys faring?
Well, we started off with a team where most people hadn't played any sort of competition level touch before. We even had someone on our team who'd never played a refereed game of touch before. So our expectation levels were to come in and to learn lots, soak it up, and just enjoy ourselves. And I think we've been doing that. Certainly the improvement has been absolutely outstanding. Having Pete Walters as our coach has really helped, I think, fast track some of that learning. We haven't won any games yet, but every game we're getting a little bit closer, and we've got our most winnable game at lunchtime today. So really looking forward to that.
And who's that against? You want to give us a bit of a heads up there?
Yeah, that's against Luxembourg. So we've been doing some video analysis, as you do, and we're going into that sort of cautiously confident. I think it'll be a really great game. It's on pitch 1, so live streamed with commentary. I think we'll be pretty well matched, and we've just got to play our patterns, and that's totally a winnable game for us.
Excellent. So a little bit more about you. You said there that you were selected to referee. How did you get into the referee pathway?
I guess, just starts at grassroots, doesn't it? At the club, when you want to start developing some of those players who come along as social players and get them maybe feeding into the National Touch League team, then you need someone who's going to provide some structure on the pitch to help them understand how to play the game of touch, particularly when we've got a load of the rugby boys come down, particularly over the summer, and they don't really understand that touch is an entirely independent and separate game to rugby. Yeah. So I guess I started just doing that. I can be quite loud when I want to be, which is helpful when you're refereeing.
Absolutely.
And I really love the technical aspects of the game. So for me, understanding from a reffing point of view how the game works not only helps my own game, but just helps me to understand how to analyze and understand how to help others play the game better too.
And now, as you said, you've been picked up as a manager for the team that you're with over there, and learning from the great Pete Walters. How's that going? I know you said the boys are quickly learning, but what are you picking up as well?
Yeah, well, I've been taking on some coaching roles, particularly with my local team and with our regional women's team. I'm really, really passionate about supporting women and girls coming up through and enjoying playing touch and keeping as many women as we can involved. So coaching is a really nice way of being able to influence how people experience the game. So for me, I am just trying to be a sponge, all the Pete wisdom. I've been blown away by how he just, in a very calm and authoritative way, feeds in and selects the right kind of, like, the low-hanging fruit that's going to really help the team improve. That's been just amazing.
Yeah, certainly learning from one of the very best there. But I think that's an important aspect of the story that you mentioned there. You know, you said you came into the game late for reasons of supporting your children, then thought, well, maybe I'll give this a go. And you found some different avenues to become involved in the game. And you touched on the importance of women being involved and just understanding that there are pathways. You don't have to be a player. There's the officiating side, the coaching side, and the managing role that you're doing there. Such an important role in any team. How have you found the different aspects of the game being involved at all of those different levels?
I mean, I think I've loved doing all of it because, well, first and foremost, touch is a great social sport. I mean, I can't get from one side of the pitch to the other here at the Euros without stopping 15 times to catch up with people that and have a chat with people that I haven't seen since the last big tournament. So, you know, being a manager has been really interesting, seeing some sort of more of the nuts and bolts of how a tournament like this operates. And I participated in the women's 35s at the World Cup in Kuala Lumpur. I was with the Eurostars, which was a pan-European team that was put together to enable that division to happen for the first time. And I remember our team manager was almost like this amazing person in the background who just made everything happen smoothly. Her name was Jane, and she was just awesome. You know, she delivered our kit clean at the end of the day and stuff like that makes your tournament just run smoothly and be that much more enjoyable so you can focus on the game. So I've really enjoyed being able to support the boys by helping with some of that stuff this time around. I love refereeing. I love the feeling of feeling like you can help a game to flow and help the players on the pitch to enjoy the game that they're there to play and to sort of facilitate that. I really enjoy that. And I'm a level 2 ref, so I'm pretty new into my refereeing career, but hopefully, you know, over the next couple of years, maybe as I get a bit older and I want to play less high level competition touch, then actually that refereeing pathway means that I can stay doing something that keeps me fit long into the future and keeps me involved in this game that I love. So yeah, so many options. It's just great to be part of that community.
Yeah, thanks very much for that. And it is great to get the insight of somebody there at the grassroots, but taking the steps to, you know, achieve different things at different levels as well. So yeah, thanks for sharing that. Let's touch on the men now that you're with. Okay, so the men's 30s division that you're managing. You said the boys are going okay, and there's a possible win expected in your next game. But who are the real standouts in that division? I know that France is going particularly well.
Yeah, so France and England are, I would say, you know, if I'm completely honest, they're in a different league to the rest of the teams in this competition, in this division. Their structure and their experience playing together and the level experience across the players on the pitch is really noticeably higher level. A lot of the players in both England and France have played at a World Cup before, at least one, and a couple of Euros. And they're clearly playing in their home countries higher level competitions more often. So it's that experience of playing at a higher level is absolutely seen in like 2020 on the pitch here. So
what I was just going to say, what makes that such an important aspect? We know that the consistency of you know, tournament touch or high level touch certainly adds to each team as they progress through it. What about the officiating at the Euros? Has that helped the game's flow, as you said earlier on? Is that also an important aspect of the development of the game at that level?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, you know, a good ref makes a game. So I think it's really important. I think it's interesting. I watch a lot of the NTLs and the, you know, Aussie and Kiwi matches, and having had that experience at the World Cup, I think one thing I'd say is I reckon Europe, we're doing a great job and we're making really good progress, but we're still quite a long way behind the Southern Hemisphere, both in terms of the level of play and in terms of the level of refereeing. There are things that I see that get picked up in Australian games that don't get picked up here yet. But I think, that's coming. And I know that we've got a couple of Aussie and Kiwi ref coaches over here at this tournament, which will, in the same way as Pete helps the Sweden team to accelerate its growth and development, then those coaches are going to help accelerate that ref development over here as well.
I must say I've enjoyed watching some of the games and the quality of the games over there now. I know you say they're behind Australia and New Zealand or some of the Southern Hemisphere teams, but there's some excellent touch being played over there. And the officiating as well, I have to say, has taken, huge steps in recent years to get to the level where you're at.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. I think, I don't want to sound negative. I think we're making massive progress, and the standard at this Euros compared to even when I first started playing, which was only sort of 6 or 7 years ago, is unrecognizable, both in terms of officiating and the play. So that's great development. We've got, I think, it's always room for improvement, always room to do more. The biggest challenge over here is that we don't have across Europe that consistent level of high-level competition play. And COVID has, I think, probably set us back a bit as well. We probably would have had more of that if COVID hadn't have gotten in the way. But yeah, for a lot of teams, this is the highest level that they will play until they come to a World Cup. And then they won't have anything like this in the interim. So that level of constant, consistent, high-level, super competitive touch, we're still building that across Europe.
Yeah, and the venue, sitting back and watching it, the coverage has been outstanding. We just saw some live vision there of the games in progress. How have you found the venue and the conditions that you're playing under?
Absolutely brilliant. I think the facilities here at Nottingham are top-notch. They're so good. The pitches, I was expecting it to be very hard and very dry because we've had super hot summer over here so far, but actually the pitches have been great. The live coverage has been not only, great for people being able to access the sport even if they're not here, but also for teams to be able to look back and analyze and look at competition and plan more strategically. That's been fantastic. And from a team manager point of view, the whole event has just run really smoothly. So massive kudos to the local team here who's helped to make that happen. And I know that there's been a bit of a change around from the EFT running this event to FIT running this event. And any kind of changeover like that's always going to, there'll be teething problems, but it certainly hasn't felt like that from a kind of customer perspective, I guess. Yeah. It's really smooth.
Yeah, really important aspect that you add there is, the players and the officials go to the tournaments to enjoy, to play, and they don't need to know what's going on in the back room. And as long as that is that forward-facing, thing is the major point. And having come from an event administration background myself, I know just how important it is. It's the duck principle, and certainly from the coverage that the games are starting on time. The refereeing is fantastic. The conditions are awesome. So, the way that the fields and the games are being presented by the organisers over there is outstanding. So kudos to them, as you said, and kudos to the participants, because the product that you're delivering is excellent.
Yeah, and I'm here with my daughter who's 14 and has started playing touch a couple of years ago and absolutely loving it too. And we have, in our downtime, enjoyed watching games so much. There's been some really great quality touch to watch, some seriously fast games, really, really exciting stuff to watch. I've loved it.
So you spoke about your daughter there, and we know that in a couple of weeks we've got the Junior Euros, which will be also taking place. And, recently it was announced that the Youth World Cup was being cancelled, but, pathways are being formed for our young participants to get involved. how important is it for people, for young girls, particularly like your daughter, to see those pathways and understand that there is something there for them in the future?
I think it's important on so many levels. First of all, it's exciting, and sport's supposed to be exciting. It's supposed to be fun. Like, before anything else, I'm a firm believer that that's what it's about. So I think that's number one. The second thing, and this is particularly an issue with girls, is that there's got to be a way to keep girls in sport when they go through those teenage years where we often see that massive drop off.
Yep.
So a sport like touch, where like my daughter and I can play together, they can play boys and girls together, and the physicality of the game and the way it's played means that girls can feel like they're making a really valuable contribution and they're an important part of the team. They're not just a kind of add-on the side. All of those things, I think, make touch such a brilliant game to keep girls in sport, keep them physically active, and kind of transitioning through those teenage years.
Yeah.
And having an aspiration like being able to go to a Euros or being able to go to a World Cup. I mean, that's just so inspiring for a teenager, right? To think that it's actually possible to be able to put on your country's vest and play for your country. Who wouldn't want that for their kids, really?
Oh,
and
absolutely.
I think actually it's really evident in this competition. We were talking about France and England earlier. And France and England, I think, have both got a really strong and growing youth pipeline. Annika and I were over at the Elegance tournament, the big women's tournament over in Paris a couple of months ago.
Right.
And there were some very young French teams there with players from sort of 12 to 16 who were fierce and playing beautiful touch already. So I think when you see that in action, that for me, that explains why the French men's 30s team is doing so well. It's because they're investing in that youth touch and they've got that pipeline coming through that means that all of the older teams are going to be, stacked with players who've got loads of experience and doing well.
Yeah, so important, as you said, that pipeline and building those pipelines, through establishing relationships with schools or complementary sports, and just letting them know that, hey, come and participate with us. Like you said, play with your mum, play with your dad, those sorts of things, and just get involved, and that there are those pathways into elite, or you can just participate. The other thing I want to talk about there, I guess, is, one of the true beauties of our sport is the mixed game, and the fact that you can play, as you said, you can play with the boys and with the girls, or, vice versa. How important is that in developing players in some of the smaller countries? And I know, the stronger countries have teams in every grade, but sometimes that's not possible. So developing youth participants in the mixed division is also an important pathway as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I think certainly across Europe, the most important thing at the moment is that the players who want to play competitive touch get as much opportunity as they can to play competitive touch. And I mean, for me, that there's got to be a step-by-step process. We can't magic up a men's and women's team for, the smaller countries who just don't have that critical mass of players yet. So putting together mixed teams where all of those players get to have the opportunity to play is going to mean that they then take that experience back to their local clubs, and that's how we get growth. That they take that experience back to that grassroots level, and that's going to be how we build the kind of competitive level of touch across Europe that we need to be able to steal some of those gold medals off the Aussies and the Kiwis.
Yeah, and that's the goal, and it is achievable, and you need to take small steps, and that's certainly what is being demonstrated, I believe, in European touch. They're taking those small steps, but getting to a place right now where the games are exceptional. The talent on display in those Euro Championships that are taking place now are fantastic. You used a phrase here, I have to point it out, magic up. I love it.
Yeah.
It's, and over there in the shades of Hogwarts, the magic up principle. How can we really provide those pathways? How can we achieve those results or accelerate them from your perspective? From somebody that's come into the game, you've got a young person in your family that wants to take the game forward as well, and you want to be a part of that. What are some of the steps that we can do to try and help out? Like, I guess from a fit perspective, or from people that go over there and visit, how can we contribute to that improvement in the game and development?
Well, we've talked about a bit of it. We've talked about young people, getting young people involved, reaching out to schools, providing an easy way for schools to be able to integrate touch into the curriculum. I think that's really important. I do a lot of work outside of my touch life with schools, and they're strapped for time, they're strapped for cash. So anything that's going to happen needs to be easy for the teachers to do and as cost effective as possible, and touch is a great sport for that. But I also think, having an event of this quality is really important, because people who see it on the live stream, people who come, supporters who come, see this and think, yeah, this is genuinely like a legit sport. It might not be a professional sport, but it's a very well organized amateur sport. So I think that helps to set the tone for the fact that this is something that you can really dedicate time to and be successful in. I think that also, like, the guys in the Sweden team have already, without any prompting, I'm hearing them talking about what they're going to take back to their local teams from this event, excited about the things they've learned and how they're going to be able to share that with other people. So there's this sort of filtering back down. And I think the critical point there is that we give as many players as possible the opportunity to play at European Championship, because it's these kind of events where you get that accelerated learning and you get that learning that you can take back. So I know that there's been, particularly post-COVID, everything's a bit tricky. There's been some sort of quite a lot of movement in terms of what countries are bringing what teams, how many teams you need to make a division work, and what teams can participate. So, particularly from a women's perspective, I'd really love to see there being perhaps more creative ways that we can get more women involved in and having the opportunity to play at this level. Watching the women's 35s, which is the division that I would, I'm way too old for that already. I'm like the women's 40s or 45s even up and running. And I know a lot of conversation going on in England touch around that at the moment, which is exciting. And hopefully I can help to facilitate some of that. We need to make these divisions competitive. And if in the short term, we need to perhaps enable one country to put in 2 teams, perhaps, to make that division more competitive, then I think we need to do that.
I'm really interested in that part of the conversation there. You talked about some interesting ideas to engage women to participate, more regularly in the game. What do you see being some of those innovations, or what do you think might be that key to getting more participation from women over a longer period of time?
Yeah, so when I started, there was a couple that was sort of running Oxford Touch. There were Barney and Tash. They're now back in New Zealand. And the critical thing for me was that I didn't know what I was doing. Like, I knew there was a rugby ball involved, and that was about it. And they made me feel welcome. They made me feel like, even from day one, I look back now and I had no clue. They made me feel like I was, part of the team from day one. And I think coach training and support for local grassroots clubs, so that they are thinking about how they make their clubs as accessible, as friendly, as welcoming as possible, is really important. And I'm a part of the Oxford Touch Committee, and that's something that we're talking about and trying to improve on constantly, to make it that if anyone comes down, even for one session, that person feels like I did and feels like, God, I need to have this in my life. This is an important part of my mental and physical well-being. I think that's one thing. I mentioned earlier, I was at the World Cup with the Eurostars team. And Eurostars is a 35 plus women's team. Well, it's more of a collective than a team, because we go on all kinds of social and competitive tournaments across Europe. And at any one time, we kind of draw on a pool of women who are over 35, who come from all of the countries across Europe. And it has such a brilliant ethos. The entire ethos is just getting women playing touch as much as possible, and giving women, particularly from countries where there aren't enough women to play in a women-only team, the opportunity to have that experience of playing competitive touch. And I absolutely love it. I think in terms of a sort of the short-term solution to helping to increase the quality of women's touch across Europe, it's a fantastic way to make that happen. I think longer term, that's sort of what we need, is to seed that talent, and then that local talent will help to grow those teams where, you know, we're already seeing like the Swiss women's 27s team here. I know a couple of girls in that team, and I've watched them play over these, and the team this year is absolutely nailing it. They're doing so well. They have a brilliant female coach, and they've had a lot of players in the Eurostars, and they've been doing a lot of investment in supporting women in touch in their local clubs in Switzerland. And I think that's a great model.
Yeah, kudos to them. And again, there you touched on, you know, a brilliant female coach, and that's another aspect of our game that we really need to develop. I know FIT are working hard on female participation and giving opportunity, and you know, likewise here in Australia, the development of female coaches, and New South Wales have just put in, you know, a program for elite female coaches called, you know, Same Game Her Way.
I do that, please.
Yeah. So it is a fantastic opportunity being led by Tony Trad, who was, you know, the Australian Men's Opens coach. And it's really going well. And I know FIT are looking into developing a similar program. So Renee, you've put your hand up. I know that you know, there'll be people listening and watching, and I know just listening to you, I can hear and see the passion that you have for our sport, and you know, you've really hit a few nerves tonight. So I thank you for sharing that insight with us. It's such an important insight to come from somebody at the grassroots, but also looking for those development pathways as well, and you know, working on growing the game. So kudos to you. It's been outstanding to have the conversation. We get some live images here up. We've been talking about developing women's touch, or the juniors. We're looking here at the other end of the spectrum, the men's 50s. So opportunities now, as you said, as the game develops and as our participation base becomes older, we have opportunities in the game for people, you know, here, the men's 50s, but the ladies' games or divisions will also progress, as you said.
Yeah, and it will come, won't it? You know, it will come. And I you know, watching this, and it just makes me smile because, you know, you think about statistics on, you know, men and suicide rates in, you know, it's the highest population of percentage of people who commit suicide is in men between 30 and 50, I think it is, or 35 and 50. And doing a sport where we know that biologically it improves your mental health because you're producing more of those endorphins and feel-good hormones, and physically you feel better, and that's got to be good for mental health as we go through and we get older, and you know, humans are living longer and all of that sort of thing. This is a sport that I was just about to say you can play with sort of a relatively low injury risk, though. Oh God, commentators curse. I'm sorry.
You put the mocker on him. I'm sure he'll be fine. He seems to be okay.
Yeah, but you bounce back, don't you? But you know, with a bit of strapping tape, you can keep playing touch for a very long time with a bit of duct tape. Absolutely.
And one of the, again, just pulling out some of the things you're saying, that key message, and you mentioned it before, talking about, you know, the women's participation, that mental and physical well-being, and it's so important. And one of the aspects of the game, and I know talking to the nations in the lead up to the event, it was the excitement about coming together again, being with your mates for training, being with your girlfriends for training, and then that shared journey, the pathway into the tournament. And then when you get there, the excitement of everything that goes on around you, it's just so good for the, you know, for the psyche, and you know, you get your physical part of it, but it is that real mental boost as well, and the camaraderie that comes with it, and it doesn't stop. You just keep developing that, and that the Eurostars that you talked about there, that ethos of participation and providing, you know, that connectivity amongst the team, just brilliant.
Yeah, and I have to mention Leslie McCallion, who was the woman who really kind of spearheaded the idea of and executed the that's a nice try there, lovely score, the Eurostars. And I think technically, I'm pretty sure, I'm not going to put my foot in it here, but I think technically she could now be playing for the women's 50s. And she still carves it up with the women's 35s. She's an absolute legend. And I think it's really important for us to have those kind of, can I use the word icon? Yeah, I'm going to use the word icon. People who you can look up to, who are super passionate about the game and really inspirational, and make you believe that, yeah, of course that's something I can still be doing when I'm 45, when I'm 50. Who knows when it will end in terms of age, and hopefully I'll be able to be refereeing until I can not do it anymore.
Yeah, absolutely. I certainly hope that you're able to do that, because what you bring to the sport is so important. Just listening, like I said earlier, the passion and the excitement that I hear and I can see in the way that you're communicating with us. It's I hope to see you involved in the game for a very long time, Renee, I have to say. And I've really enjoyed the chat. So the Euros in general, we talked about the venue and the conditions and so forth, but what are you looking forward to in the next couple of days? Where's the excitement going to come in the divisions? Who's going to take out the divisions from the Renee Watson perspective?
Right. So I think I'm really excited about our Sweden v Luxembourg game today. I think we've got a great chance of taking that. Actually, the other games we've played, so I think France and England in the men's 30s division, it'll be a do or die between them for the gold medal. I think there's still a lot up for grabs for the third place. Anyone's game, I think, in that one. So that's quite exciting, because I think these last games, everyone's improved. Everyone's going to be fighting hard for that. In the other divisions, I think the French and England and Ireland teams for the Women's Open are going to be super competitive. Wales.
We've just had another technical difficulty. Hopefully, Renee can join us back. That game she's talking about is actually taking place in just over an hour and a half's time. So we need to let Renee get away to look after the boys. But Renee, we've got you back.
Yes.
What were you saying there?
I think that the really impressive thing is that over the last couple of days, England and France came in really well prepared and determined to get that gold medal. And over the last couple of days, I've seen pretty much every country just improve so much that the last day of those final competitions are going to be intense and really exciting. And of course, we've got the social at the end where we get to kind of celebrate the week's hard work with all of our friends. I'm looking forward to that as well.
Yeah, such an important part of any event, that the socialization and the big coming together at the end of it, where everyone gets together and what happens on the field stays on the field. And we see some of the divisional positions there, but there's that match we can see being pointed out on the screen. Field 1, Luxembourg versus Sweden in the men's 30s, the big grudge match. And Renee, I really thank you for coming on board tonight and having a conversation with us. It's been outstanding to listen to your insight, your passion that you have for our sport. And, I really look forward to having some more conversations with you along the journey and just getting you involved at some different levels, and appreciate your insight into what's happening over there at the Euros. And I want to wish you all the best with the men this afternoon.
Cheers. Thanks, Adam. And it'll be a pleasure to come back and chat with you again anytime.
Outstanding. So thanks very much to Renee, and all the best for all of the participants over there at the Euros. I know that plenty of people here in Australia and all around the world are enjoying watching the live stream. So keep up the great work, and shout out to the organisers who are doing a fantastic job in respect to the coverage that's being brought to us. So I think that's been a fantastic conversation, and I really hope that people come back and watch that and just listen to the ideas and the passion that Renee shared with us. So until we get together next time, we might have a post-Euros wrap-up. I'm sure there'll be plenty of stories to come out of the tournament. But until then, it's bye for now.